grip it and rip it. Did I do that? Oh, man. Now back to Danielle Tucker.
And thank you very much, Craig Foster, founder of DynAlign. Welcome into the clubhouse.
Hi, Danielle. It's just great to speak with you again.
It's good to have you on. So DynAlign is more than just another putting style. It's a comprehensive preparation of the entire kinetic chain for more synchronized putting motion. No other technique can provide the stability of DynAlign. No matter your skill level, from beginner to tour professional, DynAlign can give you an elite level putting stroke. That's a big, big statement there.
It really is, but it's just so great that I get to follow Dr. Kanwar on here because she's talking about exactly the same thing, where there's so much movement that is possible in our anatomy, and especially with the arms, the forearms, as she mentioned, just slight motion in your forearms and wrists will cause the club face to change. And most of the techniques that you see on tour now, on all the tours, where players aim their putter first and then they step in and build their stance, and they'll gingerly take their grip. If you notice, they're very careful about taking their grip, and that's because their system is vulnerable. And that's the fact that they're so careful about taking their grip. They don't want to disturb their alignment, and to me, that's just evidence that this is a very vulnerable system.
Let's talk. That using muscles that are, you don't even realize you're moving the forearm, right? You don't even realize you're moving your wrist when you do it. And then you question yourself like, wait a minute, I got all set up and all of a sudden it's not doing what it's supposed to do.
Yes, and I've used the hack motion sensor, the various sensors that you can detect the motion, but you can't really feel it. It's so small that you can measure it with a sensor, but it's hard to feel. And then, yeah.
So what do we do about that? So, is that muscle twitching from nervousness? Is it?
Well, mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Yes, when pressure's on, as she said, it's fight or flight, and your muscles will react more forcefully, quicker, and that changes your timing because those systems are based on timing. And what we do with DynAlign, we are going to soft end range motion, and this is more with the bones than the muscles, because when we use a soft end range motion, for example, in our lead hand, we are supinating, holding a cup of soup with our lead hand, and that will cause the bones in the forearm. This is very important, that the bones in the forearm will rotate to a stopping point. And this is called, there are a soft end range and a hard end range. And we use soft end range motion. So we configure the bones in the forearm. This is during the pre-shot routine. This is like opening a doorknob. So this is it may sound complicated. It's very simple, really. And so we're getting a mechanical stop or stopping point that prevents this extra rotation and motion in the hands. Bryson DeChambeau is really the closest. He uses a similar type system. DynAlign is different than the way Bryson sets up, but Bryson understands it. And he talks about end range motion and how you have to be very careful when you're using end range motion because you can injure yourself, and there's frequent injuries. In fact, I had a severe wrist injury before that's how DynAlign came about. When I was a young golfer, I also had a severe case of yips when I was younger, but then I had a severe wrist injury because of using this end range motion. I was trying to hit the ball farther, as players do. This is many years ago. We didn't understand all these details, but the good that came out of that is I was seen by a very experienced hand surgeon in Seattle, I learned about the bones, I learned about the motion, and I've been studying this ever since. And so it really is a simple pre-shot routine, a dynamic pre-shot routine where we're using the soft end range motion and opposing pressures from our feet all the way up through the body, down the arms, and down the clubs. It's the entire kinetic chain. And parts of this have been used before. You know, Paul Runyon, Jackie Burke Jr., Paul Azinger, Corey Pavin, they both turned their hands in opposite directions. They turned the left hand counterclockwise, the right hand clockwise, and they got a lot of stability because they were stabilizing those bones in the forearms. And so the difference with DynAlign goes further because when you twist the hands in the opposite direction, it puts your dominant hand in an odd position for rolling a ball. And with our system, my dominant hand, right-handed, is in a natural rolling position. So this is very good for distance control. You know, a lot of the gripping techniques now, they're saying take the hands out of the stroke, take the hands out of the stroke. It's repeated, but your dominant hand is your best player for delivering force application and distance control because we've thrown things all our life with our dominant hand. So that's where our feel is. And with DynAlign, we stabilize the lead side. We make a true pendulum out from the shoulder, down the arm, down the club. So it's a true pendulum. And then with our dominant hand, if you're right-handed, then you can fully use your dominant hand when you're distance control. That's like, you know, the coach taking the best player out of the game, you'd be fired.
Right.
So that's just a lot of benefits with DynAlign.
That's great. End range motion. What does that mean?
Yes, end range of motion. Well, our joints like freedom. Your joints want to move around, and they will move only so far. And if you open a doorknob with either hand, you're twisting it, it will go so far and then it wants to stop. Well, you're at the end range of motion. So all of our joints have these end range of motion. And that's what we have to be very careful with this. You don't want to overdo it, but that's where we get the stability. And it's just all sports have their ready position, you know, where they're in tennis, you're on the balls of your feet, football, baseball, you're ready for action. And if you aim your putter first and step in and build a stance, you're not really activating your system. So with DynAlign, we have this pre-shot routine where we become active and we're feeling our putter in a stable arc. DynAlign creates a stable arc stroke. And so we feel that in motion just before we putt. Whereas if you're aiming the putter first, then your static alignment, and as soon as you put the putter into motion, that's the first sense of motion that you have. It's right then at that instant when you're starting the stroke. And so then it's kind of new information for your system, and it's difficult for you to react really on time. And I think, you know, one of the very best examples of this is Calvin Peete. Calvin Peete led the PGA Tour in driving accuracy for 10 years in a row, just unheard of. Well, Calvin Peete fell out of a tree when he was a young boy, broke his left elbow, and he didn't have proper medical treatment, and that joint, the elbow joint, became fused. So he did not have that rotation in his lead hand. That's why the club face wasn't opening and closing. And so when you grip the putter with the thumb straight down the top, it's symmetrical. It sounds like a good idea, but it's in the most vulnerable position because that's where you have the most range of motion, both left and right. So our thumb is on the front side of the putter grip rather than on top. And you have to be very careful about this. You don't want to strain anything, but you can comfortably put it on the front side of the grip. That's part of our routine. It's in the new ebook.
Wow. Tell us, how do we get the book? Because when we talk about it, you know, it makes sense, but it's hard to put that into the, the process of the mind, then being able to feel it, then be able to, you know what I'm saying? It's usually when we're talking about something, I can feel it and I get my sense. But this one it's so simple, I think, that it's, but it sounds complicated in the conversation of it. And so
it does. Yes, it does. And it's a video ebook. So I go through and show you step by step. And it's a simple explanation. Just imagine with your left hand, you're reaching out to open a doorknob, and you turn it counterclockwise, and you're turning it to a soft and comfortable range. And your palm is going to be facing up, and you've supinated your hand, and you've got the bones in the forearms more stabilized. So that's an easy way. And this absolutely can sound complicated. It's very simple. And once you get in your reps, it's like learning any other skill. It is complicated at first. You go slowly, you get in your reps, and then it becomes second nature. So when you learn this system and you're out on the golf course, you're not thinking about supinating your hand and we do a right side bend, we do forward hip bump, we do a little thing. You're not even thinking of that.
Right.
You feel that,
yeah.
But you're able to maintain your focus on your putt. And, the best example of this is not a scientific paper that I've done, but I do have a 2 number 1 rankings. One of my players had 2 number 1 rankings in putting on the PGA Tour for a year. This is Steve Elkington. He was number 1 from 3 feet. He made 471 consecutive putts for a year on tour with 0 misses.
Wow.
He was also number 1 inside 5 feet. He had 595 attempts. He made 585 of those putts, over 98%.
Wow.
There's my scientific
right
there.
Right. So where do we get the book, the ebook, or the video book?
It's on my website. It's at DynAlignGolf.com. That's DynAlign golf.com, and then there's a link in there where you can get it, and you can stream it and download it both.
So when I said it sounds complicated, I don't mean that it sounds complicated doing it. It sounds simple. All of these things are simple motions, but just in describing it, it gets more difficult sometimes to visualize it and to feel it. So you're doing a great job, though. I'm getting it. So DynAlign is a pre-shot golf alignment technique.
Exactly, and it's dynamic preparation for motion, because you're going into motion. If you're a human still life standing over your putt, and it's Sunday afternoon, and you have a lot of pressure on you, then things can change. Your timing changes. Things kind of get out of your control. They can easily. So it's not really a mental thing. It's I think to a greater extent it's a physical preparation. It does have mental aspects to it, but once you feel this, I have my YouTube channel. There's a link on my website. I have over 230 videos on my YouTube channel, and I putt left-handed, right-handed, upside down putters. I putt one-handed, left-handed. I'm not left-handed, and I'm not a trick shot artist. I don't even practice. I just do these putts for the videos, and it just shows how stable this system is. So, there it is. There's another example that people can, rather than change your putter, people have putters in their closet. They change the grip. I putt with a wood and a stick in one of my videos. I call it the Fred Flintstone putter, and then also putt with a putter that's just bent all over the shaft. It was intentionally bent all over the place. That's my acid test putter, and I can make putts with all of them because it's not really the putters are important. I favor the Axis One putters, the Justin Rose model putters, because those are perfectly balanced. They don't create torque. That's another the thing in the equation, the torque in the putter. So I can putt with anything. I prefer to putt with the Axis ones because they are perfectly balanced.
Okay. I love what you said, though, and I hadn't read this. I was just going through some of the notes that I copied and put on a sheet of paper. I am learning as a teacher as well. DynAlign can be seen as too technical or too complicated for people. It can take some time to learn, but it's very logical. I'm learning to simplify the instruction, but sometimes I feel like the guy in the TV commercial who teaches the unteachable. That is so funny. I'm making new videos about DynAlign with Steve Elkington for his site, Secret in the Dirt. Are they still there?
Yes, they are. In fact, the first full-length, feature-length video we made is available. It's called The Stroke of the Future, and I think it's about a 50-minute video. And that's when Elk and I started working together. That was back 10 years ago or so. We're still associated now. He still uses. He's retired, but he still uses my stuff. He plays daily. And so that video is available now. We've made some upgrades. I've made some upgrades and simplified the system and made it more efficient than is on that original video. So in the ebook, it shows you the latest updates to it, but basically the same technique.
Excellent, excellent. So you've talked to Rocco Mediate, you worked with Bruce Fleischer, and then you filmed at Pebble Beach with Golf Channel for a training aid that you're working on, a laser putter?
Yes, that was a few years ago, and that's a product that's no longer on the market. But
okay.
Yes, and I worked with another tour player. I did not work with Bruce Fleischer. We just spoke there. So.
Okay, sorry. Okay, yeah. Well, I really like the way you do it. I never thought about focusing on the bones. I've always thought about the feel, and that'll work just fine on days when you're relaxed and comfortable. But if you're having an off day, sometimes the feel doesn't work.
Well, yes, that's with the static alignment where you do have all those variables. Now, with DynAlign creates a very specific feel throughout your body when we line up. We have, we're dynamically loaded from the ground up. We have a runner's stance. We use an open stance because we torque our body back against the open stance, and that provides stability. You think of Bobby Locke, he had an extremely closed stance. So he was doing some of this torquing himself. So when people think of, they think of the square setup. Most of the teaching is square stance, square feet, hips, shoulders, square, 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 and thumbs down top. It's symmetrical. It sounds like a good idea, but it's not really good preparation for motion, because that's really you have the most range of motion in all of your joints when you have this square stance. So. And as Dr. Kymore said, it's no matter how much you practice, you can have failure, and we see that frequently on tour. It's really it's frustrating for me to watch players set themselves up for failure, and even the best players. I mean, these are players who are gifted. But you think of Will Zalatoris. Will Zalatoris is a gifted ball striker. He can't control the putter at 3 miles an hour. That's because of all these variables. There's lots of room for improvement, believe me.
Right, I hear you. Craig Foster, founder of DynAlign, a preshot alignment technique. Tell us your site again, your YouTube site, as well as where we can get the ebook.
Yes, it's DynAlign. DynAlign golf.com, and there are links there to my YouTube channel, to other interviews, lots of videos to watch. So and then I do Zoom lessons worldwide as well, so we can speak directly about this, and I can show you exactly how it works. I prefer people buy look at the ebook and study that, so they'll have a head start if we need to get together. But there's lots of great information available for everyone.
Awesome. That's wonderful. I need to get my putter out. I need to go to your website, DynAlignGolf.com. Thank you very much for being on the show today.
Aloha, Danielle.
You have a good one. Aloha.